Hi, you're watching.
Don't you hate it when you are just minding your own business, walking down the streets, thinking it's going to be just a normal day? But suddenly fate was feeling a little bit cheeky and decided to prank you hard. You may not have experienced it yet, but the MC of this story surely did, so let's get on to it. The story began with our MC named Zukian, who had been navigating the streets of his city, phone clutched tightly in his hand, and was visibly agitated because some idiot had made the absurd request of printing a GIF. But little did he know, his day was about to take a turn for the worse. As Xu Qian grumbled under his breath, the universe decided to intervene in the most unexpected way, rather than the traditional truck-kun intervention. Because this piece of metal is famous now, and is evidently beyond the budget of this universe, and so fate chose the next stupidest way to cancel the life of a main character, and that is to drop a massive dead fish from the sky right onto his effing skull, instantly unaliving him on the spot. Passers-by screamed and scattered, unable to comprehend the bizarre scene. With his life abruptly cut short, Xu Qian was ready for an isekai adventure. His soul floated in a void, his consciousness barely hanging on. Meanwhile, the system's power began merging with his phone. Suddenly, a mystical beast appeared before him. Driven by curiosity, it approached Xu Qian and accidentally touched the magical phone imbued with the system, triggering something within the void. The beast realized it had messed with something it shouldn't have, but it was too late. The cracks grew larger, and they were sucked out by a powerful force. Moments later, in the middle of nowhere, where strong winds and snow filled the air, a crack suddenly materialized, breaking the fabric of space and time. It spat out the unconscious Xu Qian. Meanwhile, inside the Snowfield Disaster Relief Command Center, chaos erupted. The northern part of the snowfield showed abnormal energy readings that exceeded A-rank standards. Alarms blared, and reports flooded in, prompting Lord Zhu to dispatch a battle team to the site immediately. Back where Xu Qian lay, a group of wolves began gathering around him. The mystical beast saw this as a chance to study them more closely, and copied their appearances, completely shocking the wolves and causing them to scatter. Meanwhile, the disaster relief team was quickly searching for any other victims. Soon, their search hounds led them to where Xu Qian was lying. Seeing that there was a survivor, they immediately checked if he was still alive. They were relieved to find that he was, though badly hurt. They treated him on the spot to stabilize him. Despite his severe injuries, they noted how lucky he was not to have been eaten by the centipedes in the area. They assumed the snow-dire wolf beside him was his contract spirit beast, and marveled at how it had protected him. Meanwhile, the mystical beast acted dumb to avoid blowing its cover. Soon after, Xu Qian finally woke up. As he opened his eyes, he noticed he was in a different place. Before he could ask any questions, his head suddenly ached due to a surge of memories flooding his brain. These memories merged his past life with those of his current body. After the merging, he realized he had been transmigrated to another world. Now that his mind was clear, he was ecstatic, shouting that it was finally his turn to be isekai'd and demanding to know where his cheat ability was. Hearing Xu Qian suddenly start talking nonsense, the team assumed he must have injured his brain, and so they decided to quicken things up to get this dude some formal medical help. After confirming his identity, they discovered that he was now an orphan attending Snowfield Academy as a first-year freshman and a famous top student. This realization pressured the disaster relief team to protect him at all costs. They added Xu Qian to the list of accident victims, completing their mission. Before they left, one team member who's curious about how Xu Qian survived had asked him directly, but Xu Qian couldn't answer, as he was mystified by the sight of a towering mystical beast behind them. The team leader explained that it was the nightmare witch Barris, and assured Xu Qian that it wouldn't attack them without reason. With that reassurance, they safely sent him back to Linjiang City. In a change of scene, Xu Qian returned to his home, now fully bandaged up. He still couldn't believe he had just been transmigrated, but he was relieved to find he still had his handsome face. As he looked around, he noticed his identity card from Snowfield Academy among the memories he had inherited. It seemed to be a famous school in the northern region. His attention was then caught by a news broadcast covering the accident he was in. He saw the mystical beast from earlier, but to his surprise, there was also a human beside it. This reminded him that he was now in a world where people had professions like spirit tamer. Humans could form contracts with special and unique spirit beasts, taming them to fight, explore, and do other activities. Xu Qian had never successfully tamed a beast before, but now, he might have a chance to be as excellent as the man he saw on the news. As he daydreamed about his potential future, a voice suddenly interrupted his thoughts, informing him that it had confirmed the identity of the corrector. This immediately confused him, and he even recognized the voice but couldn't place it. And since the wolf is the only creature he is with, he accused it of learning to talk without permission. and the wolf, thinking Shu Qian was praising it, just acted as if it had indeed spoken. Luckily, Zhu Qian's confusion was cleared up when his phone fell out of his pocket. Picking it up, he was surprised to see it informing him about his identity as a corrector. With this revelation, he gained a passive ability called beast language, allowing him to communicate with spirit beasts. Additionally, he received an active ability named Good Hand, which enabled him to pat and touch a contracted spirit beast and transfer his soul energy to increase its quality and soul energy limit. This immediately excites him, but even before he could react, a new mission suddenly popped up, requiring him to tame a beast to activate the camera function in the system. Seeing all this unfold, Shu Qian was ecstatic. He knew this system was his cheat to become powerful in this world, but before he could fully celebrate, he wondered what a traditional skill like Good Hand entailed. Did he really have to play with the dog to make it stronger? Determined to find out, he decided to go for it. Carrying the dog with all the excitement he could muster, the system suddenly interpreted his actions as making a contract with a beast. With that, he completed the mission and unlocked the camera function, and Shu Qian was stunned at how easily he had become a spirit tamer, while the dog was internally traumatized by the sudden turn of events. And now that his information had changed, Shu Qian noticed the new camera function the system had given him, which made him curious, so he quickly took a picture of the dog beside him. The image revealed the dog's true identity, which surprised Shu Qian, as it was the mystical beast from before, and no wonder it had been following him. And from what he could recall in his inherited memories, he remembered that in order to contract a spirit beast, mutual acknowledgement was required. But since there wasn't any blockage or resistance, he assumed the mystical beast had truly acknowledged him, and the dog howled in confirmation. But Shu Qian quickly bonked it on the head to keep it from disturbing the neighbors. After that, Shu Qian asked why it kept following him. The dog replied that it didn't know how to go back home and wished for Shu Qian to help it return. Now he understood why it hadn't resisted the contract. He was also amazed that he could now understand the beast language, but he soon realized that he doesn't really have any clue on how to send it back home. But since they had made a contract, it is just right to do everything he can to find a way. Hearing Shu Qian's compassionate words, the dog approached to bond with him. Seizing the moment, Shu Qian decided to try his Good Hand skill. As he patted Doggo, deep in thought, he remembered that spirit beasts were ranked into 5 levels of quality, starting with bad, to average, good, excellent, and finally, perfect. This was similar to how humans had varying levels of IQ. High-quality spirit beasts could learn and awaken skills more efficiently. With this in mind, it was even more unbelievable to him that he had gained such an overpowered skill from the start, one that allowed him to increase a spirit beast's quality just by petting it. But what's even more surprising is that the dog he was holding was of perfect quality, despite its simple and ordinary appearance, but he enjoyed the feel of his dog's fluffy fur way too much. He hadn't noticed how tired he was becoming, and forgotten he was even using his Good Hand skill, and with this he completely depleted his soul energy, leading him to collapse on the spot. Meanwhile, at the abnormality entrance where Shu Qian had emerged, 2 mystical beasts stood guard, conversing with their master. They spoke about a sinister presence deep within the crack, something terrible that seemed to be coming to life. From the deepest part of the dimensional rift, an ominous entity began to emerge. The next day, Shu Qian found himself walking towards Frostfield Academy. As he strolled, a new mission notification appeared on his phone. The task required him to level up his contracted spirit beast to a 2-star average rank. Upon completion, this would unlock a new skill named Speed Absorb, allowing the spirit beast to gain more EXP after battles, which made him curious, and so Shu Qian quickly checked his phone. To his surprise, his contract beast's information had become an app. It displayed the evolution materials required to evolve his beast, including the familiar ice crystal and the mysterious void crystal he had never heard of before. Moreover, this soul energy that was displayed is only at 110, but he remembered clearly that he had lost consciousness the previous night after using his skill. He had been sucked dry, but his spirit beast, which he had named Erha, had only increased its soul energy limit by 10. So it seems like increasing soul limits would be more difficult than he initially thought. But as he pondered all this, someone he knew suddenly popped up from behind him, startling him out of his thoughts. Quickly hiding his phone, Shu Qian turned to see Yunyao, the daughter of his parents' comrade, but because of his suspicious behavior, her curiosity piqued, prompting Yunyao to snatch the phone from his hand and examined it closely. And she was shocked to discover that Shu Qian had started liking dogs and jumping to conclusions. She assumed he was a beast-con pervert, and ain't no way he is gonna let anyone label him as a furry. And so Shu Qian hurriedly tried to clarify the situation by showing her the dog in the picture in person. As he did so, he felt a wave of relief wash over him, as he realized that the system's special panel could only be seen by him and it is likely due to his corrector identity. Now that Yun Yao saw the snow dire wolf with Shu Qian, she remembered the incident he had been involved in, and so she asked if he was okay. Shu Qian reassured her that he was fine, and it was all thanks to his doggo, which had chased away all the other snow dire wolves while he was unconscious, and Yun Yao was grateful. In turn, she thanked the dog and promised to buy it some yummy food next time. And as they bond, Shu Qian had an idea and asked Yun Yao if he could take a picture of her spirit beast. She agreed, but not before teasingly asking if he had any perverted hobbies, which Shu Qian quickly denied it. After that was cleared up, he took a picture and the system revealed the information about the Snow Night Star Fox. But he then noticed something odd about this pet, prompting him to ask Yun Yao how her family had trained her spirit beast, as it seems like to enjoy posing for the picture, and it even brought out its swimwear, which immediately embarrassed Yun Yao, as it unintentionally revealed her secret. Still, she tries to downplay it by explaining that her star fox had a quirky personality, and then divert the subject by asking Shu Qian what he was thinking right now, which was effective, as Shu Qian explained that the previous night he had made a contract with the dog and was now wondering how to upgrade it to 2 stars. This surprised her, as she never thought he would contract a spirit beast, especially a snow dire wolf, which few people chose. But Shu Qian didn't mind because he found it cute, and besides, it had saved his life. Yun Yao, on the other hand, pointed out that a snow dire wolf's personality was not suitable for a contract, and its quality was slightly lower, meaning its soul energy limit wasn't high either, and she was disheartened that he had contracted what she considered a useless dire wolf. This made Shu Qian contemplate about telling her that his doggo was special, but before he could, Yun Yao decided to support her friend's choice. She encouraged him not to give up, mentioning that it was said a snow dire wolf could awaken a strong companion skill, even though it was rare. This intrigued the Shu Qian, so he asked about the companion beast skill, and Yun Yao explained that it was a skill that appeared only on contracted beasts. Her star fox, for instance, had a chance to awaken the companion skill called Snow Dance. This skill uses the soul energy of a tamer to enable her spirit beast to gain fast speed in a snowy environment. Even though a new tamer's soul energy was weak, if the spirit beast's quality was high, it could awaken a companion skill. But tamers had to be cautious. Overusing the skill could exhaust them, and in severe cases, cause them to lose consciousness. And just the thought of it sends shivers down to Shu Qian's spine, leading him to ask if the soul energy can recover after reaching that point, and she assured him not to worry, as soul energy is like mana points to a game, which was a relief, and so he went ahead and asked how he could increase it. To which Yun Yao explained that when a contracted spirit beast broke through to a new level, it would provide additional soul energy to the tamer. This was a win-win situation, allowing both the tamer and the beast to grow stronger together. But for Shu Qian, who have a rare skill, this isn't enough, and so he inquired if there were any treasures or items that could increase a tamer's soul energy, and if such items could also affect the beast's soul energy simultaneously. And Yun Yao answered that there were such items, but they couldn't affect the spirit beast in the same way, as the spirit beast's soul energy limit was tied to its race and level. Once it broke through to a new level, its soul energy would naturally increase. The same race and quality gap also played a role, with perfect quality beasts being stronger than poor quality ones. Strong race spirit beasts were naturally born with high soul energy limits, and this limit was typically used to differentiate power levels. Receiving all this information firsthand, Shu Qian realized his skill was truly a cheat, as it could increase a spirit beast's soul energy limit with just a touch. But as he was deep in thought, Yun Yao remembered Shu Qian's desire to upgrade Doggo to 2 stars, so she suggested a spar between her spirit beast and Doggo, and Shu Qian acted as if he doesn't want to. But deep inside, he was ecstatic, because he saw it as an easy win and a chance to gain a lot of EXP by defeating a 4-star spirit beast. And because of his display, Yun Yao confidently reassured him that she would go easy on him, which was enough for Shu Qian, and so he agrees to fight. But little did Shu Qian knew, his friend was just as cunning as him, as Yun Yao isn't really planning to go easy, as she was well aware. Although her star fox was agile and fast, its endurance was weaker than a snow dire wolf's. Despite her beast's higher level, she knew an attack-type spirit beast couldn't handle a few well-placed tear claw attacks, so she will fight with caution. With this in mind, she ordered her spirit beast to use its snow burst skill, hurling a massive amount of snow to block Doggo's vision. And Shu Qian quickly realized what was happening, and ordered Doggo to dodge the attack and use Ice Breath to force the opponent out of hiding. But the attempt was ineffective, and they even received damage from Yun Yao's retaliation. With this, Shu Qian realized they might lose the battle due to her superior strategy. And since Yun Yao sees she had the upper hand and her friend is being a complete idiot, she ordered her spirit beast to end the battle with another snowburst. But Shu Qian's cowering was all an act once again, and as the snow fox released its skill, they seized the opportunity to dodge the attack perfectly this time, and used Tear Claw to force the opponent to retreat. But the level gap was too significant, and their attempts were just nullified by another snowburst. And this doggo was irritated as his opponent kept on spamming the same move, and so it was about to use its true strength. Thankfully, Shuqian quickly realized what was about to go down, and therefore interrupted and admitted defeat to avoid exposing Doggo's real identity. But Doggo didn't like losing, so it barked in frustration, and it even acted that it calmed down so it could be free and give the smoke to that snow fox. But seeing that its master isn't letting go, it continued to bark again, and again to the point that Yunyao realized that this Doggo is a sore loser. A few moments later, now that Doggo had truly calmed down, they continued to walk, and Shuqian was deep in thought as he noticed that the system had many locked features, making him wonder if he had to upgrade Doggo to unlock them. To answer this question, he needed to get there himself, and so he resolved to quickly let Doggo reach 2 stars and upgrade faster to uncover more about his identity as a corrector, and what it truly meant. A few moments later, Shuqian and Yunyao entered their classroom, where they were greeted by their designated teacher for the class. He welcomed them and quickly got down to business. He assumed that all of them must have seen the news about a new dungeon that had appeared in the northern part of the snowfield. Under Snowfield University's request, the freshmen's military training would be held in the outer area of this dungeon. The teacher explained that this time, their military training performance would be added to the semester's results and would affect next semester's profession distribution. So it is advised to take this seriously. And this announcement startled the students, as they had heard rumors about dangerous monsters inside the dungeon, but they remained confident, believing that the school wouldn't send them into a dangerous situation without ensuring their safety. On the other hand, Shuqian felt dejected. Even after being transmigrated to a different world, he couldn't escape military training. Meanwhile, the teacher noticed the worried expressions on the students' faces, so he reassured them, explaining that the surroundings had been cleared and only low-level beasts remained. This would be their first lesson, and it would begin in 1 week. He advised them to prepare beforehand and find a group to join, as each group could have up to 3 people, and since their grades would be based on group performance, he emphasized the importance of taking care of each other. Hearing all this made Shuqian ecstatic. This was his chance to find someone strong to team up with. He went over to Yunyao first and begged her to group with him, explaining that he needed someone to carry him. She accepted, and since they needed 1 more member, he eagerly set out to find another person to join their group, even if he had to drag someone into it. He approached the nearest person he could find and kindly asked if they would join their group. The guy agreed, but before committing, he showed his 2-star normal rank ice snake and asked Shuqian what his spirit beast was, and Shuqian proudly revealed his cool-looking doggo. But seeing that Shuqian had a low-ranking spirit beast, just disheartened the guy and backed out of the offer, giving a lame excuse, knowing the guy was just bullshitting. Shuqian expressed his scorn and moved on to his next potential recruit. But word had spread that no one wanted to team up with Shuqian because they believed a Snowdire Wolf's ability and quality were terrible, and its obedience probability was low. Despite Shuqian's friendly approach, everyone quickly declined his offer, leaving him to question why no one liked his doggo. Unexpectedly, some douchebag started running his mouth, loudly criticizing the Snowdire Wolf. He couldn't believe someone was stupid enough to make a contract with it, wondering if that person was dumb or just poor. Hearing all this disrespect, Shuqian knew he couldn't let it slide. He was about to throw hands when the cowardly douchebag retracted his statement, claiming he wasn't talking about Shuqian and apologizing if he offended him. Realizing this scum knew how to use his mouth but not his hands, Shuqian decided to let it go to avoid causing problems for himself and Yunyao. He returned to Yunyao, irritated that no one would team up with him. She responded that it was to be expected because everyone else wanted someone to carry them too. That was why everyone was flocking to the guy with the rank 5 ice spirit. Even the douchebag envied him. Seeing all this, Shuqian became more determined than ever to prove them wrong. He knew that once he unlocked the ability called Speed Absorb, he would shock everyone during the military training. With newfound determination, he asked Yunyao if there was any place in their city suitable for a newbie to train, and she told him about the Tamer Hall, where she and her spirit beast trained for 2 months during the holiday, and they even leveled up to rank 4-star normal grade. If she had known he would also choose to be a tamer, she would have invited him to join her, especially since the Tamer Hall was free for them as martyr orphans but limited to tamer newbies. And since he wanted to level up Doggo to 2 stars, she believes that 1 week there would be enough. This excites Shuqian and therefore decided to go to the Tamer Hall the next day, in which Doggo barked in approval. But Shuqian quickly bonked him on the head to stop him from barking inside the classroom. But this just irritated Doggo, because it seems like his partner is getting a little too comfortable with this physical abuse. The next day, Shuqian and Yunyao found themselves inside the Tamer Hall, Upon showing their identification cards, the attendants recognized them as children of martyrs and bowed in respect to their fallen parents, which surprised Shu Qian, but his attention was quickly diverted to the variety of spirit beasts that other tamers had, and was immediately amazed. Seeing his reaction, Yun Yao informed him that there were even more impressive beasts on the upper floors, as the first floor was specifically for newbies. And this made him even more curious, and so Shu Qian asked why he hadn't come with her before, to which Yun Yao explained that during that period, he had been busy doing research in the snowfield and didn't let her accompany him. But now, he seemed more normal, and this prompted Shu Qian to wonder what he had discovered to be so enthralled to do research, and why he remembered nothing about his time in the snowfield. Soon after, they headed to their training area, but Shu Qian was still deep in thought, pondering what he might be hiding from himself. And since he was so lost in his thoughts and unaware of where he was going, Yun Yao decided to drag him straight to their destination like how Shu Qian would drag his doggo. Opening the door, they were greeted by an employee who recognized Yun Yao and remembered her having a normal 4-star spirit beast, prompting him to ask why she was training at the easy difficulty level, in which Yun Yao clarified that she was just there to accompany a friend. Seeing her star fox now well nurtured, the employee recalled that it still held the 3rd place in the difficulty's pass ranking. Hearing about the pass ranking for the first time, Shu Qian asked Yun Yao what it was. She simply pointed at the board to answer his question. Even though he didn't fully understand it, he was amazed. She explained that it was indeed impressive because the easy difficulty arena contained 200 2-star pigs. Ordinary people couldn't even clear it. If he managed to clear it and enter the ranking, he could earn rewards. It was because of those rewards that her spirit beast had become a 4-star. This intrigued him, prompting him to ask what rewards were available, and the employee informed him that getting on the ranking would earn him an eternal VIP status, allowing him to use the entire facility at a discount. As for the other rewards, he assured that it would not disappoint, and that a newbie tamer like him would definitely benefit from them. And seeing that Shu Qian was excited to take the trial, the employee asked him about his contract beast. Shu Qian gladly showed his snow dire wolf, and the employee assumed he was joking at first, but soon realized Shu Qian was serious. With good intentions, he advised Shu Qian to give up to avoid making his contract beast suffer. But Shu Qian knew Doggo was special, and believed they would only know for sure after they tried. So he brushed off the employee's concerns and asked to start the trial immediately. And the employee appreciated Shu Qian's determination, and therefore permitted him to proceed, but not before he asked Yun Yao if she was going to stop him, in which she responded confidently that she wouldn't because she believed in Shu Qian. With that, Zukian and his pet had entered the trial, and the simulation began. Immediately, a pig appeared in front of them. Shu Qian advised Doggo to use its claw to attack the pig's neck after charging, reminding him not to show his true form and just hang in there, because after upgrading to 2 stars this trial would be easy for them. And with their strategy finalized, Doggo faced the pig head-on, executing their plan perfectly. Doggo's claw slashed at the pig's neck, but the attack did not kill the pig instantly, so it got the chance to counterattack. But before Doggo could react, a few more pigs appeared, instantly surrounding him, and Shu Qian quickly informed Doggo about the situation. And understanding the urgency, Doggo took the initiative to kill the first pig, trying to reduce their numbers. But as Doggo focused on one pig, another launched a surprise attack from the side, and the impact was strong, dealing significant damage and making it difficult for Doggo to stay upright. Still, the employee was astonished to see a 1-star snow dire wolf take such damage and still have the will to stand, while Yun Yao, although worried, continued to believe in Shu Qian and Doggo, confident they could overcome this challenge together. Now injured, Doggo looks at Shu Qian, and seeing that his partner still believes in him, Doggo was more determined than ever. But the number of pigs kept increasing, and they soon cornered him on all sides. And it was only a matter of time before another pig landed a hit from the side. But this time it was different. Their attack didn't faze him at all. Instead, it just fueled his anger, causing Doggo to let out a menacing blood-red aura around its body. This aura was unlike anything they had seen before from a wolf. It was raw power and rage, coalescing into a deadly force, and its eyes narrowed, dripping with spite and determination as it was about to unleash the sickest fate ever. Meanwhile, in the control room, Yun Yao was shocked to see such a skill. She wondered if a snow dire wolf could even do that, as it was her first time witnessing this type of situation. The employee, equally stunned, mentioned he was familiar with the skill but couldn't quite recall where he had seen it before. Soon after, Doggo entered a full-blown rage. He howled at the pigs to assert his dominance before deciding to obliterate them. Hearing this howl, the employee's eyes widened in realization. This was a lord's pressure skill, something only a king beast among races could possess. Normally, pigs would have fainted or run away, but these were just virtual pigs without consciousness. so the pressure was ineffective. But to the employee's surprise, the howl wasn't a threat but a promise, as what came next was the execution. Doggo tore through the pigs with ease, one after another, leaving everyone watching in shock. Even though they say the awakened pressure skill is strong, it shouldn't let it defeat the pigs so easily. It even made them skeptical if this was a snow dire wolf at all, as it kept displaying again and again how it surpassed its limits and killed its opponents with one slash of its claw. This was so unheard of that even Shu Qian was no exception. He didn't even know his dog could be this savage, and so he quickly pulled out his phone to check Doggo's stats. To his astonishment, Doggo had unlocked a new skill called Unknown Blessing, allowing him to enter his true beast state. This made Shu Qian wonder when his dog even received such a skill, but finding when wasn't really important right now. The only thing that mattered was that this skill proved to be a significant addition to his dog's overall power, as it could now tear through these pigs like they weren't even there to begin with. Its speed seemed to have doubled as well, allowing it to create such an amazing sight, with snow swirling around and a red fog filling the simulation arena. And the employee recognized this red aura as it resembled the Qimu wolf's aura, the legendary ancestor of the wolf tribe. This kind of power awakening in a normal snow dire wolf was unheard of even in the entire world. Usually, such an awakening only happened with excellent quality beasts, and even then, only with a slight chance. But here was a wolf defying all odds and expectations. With this, excitement bubbled up in the employee as he realized he was witnessing something legendary. And as he looked at the records, he noted that Doggo had already defeated 44 two-star pigs. And Yunyao's eyes widened with excitement, and she asked if this meant Shu Qian might pass the trial. The employee nodded, and if the snow dire wolf's blood awakening state could last longer, they could even take first place in the rankings. If such a thing happened, he must inform the curator of this extraordinary event. But before that, his attention was diverted to Yunyao as her excitement grew, and she cheered even louder for Shu Qian and Doggo. But he just reminded her that it was useless, since Shu Qian wouldn't be able to hear her, making it awkward for her. Back to the fight. Shu Qian guided Doggo to dodge any unseen attacks. After a few tense moments, they realized there were no more pigs in sight. They wondered if the trial was over. To their surprise, Doggo suddenly leveled up to rank 2. With this level up, Doggo gained new skills like fast absorbing and a passive companion skill called eating habit. This skill allowed Doggo to steal portions of an opponent's soul energy. This was so perfect that Shu Qian felt it awakened for this exact situation. Even Doggo seemed to understand this, as it was now smiling menacingly, and when another pig appeared, Doggo swiftly killed it and absorbed a portion of its soul energy. With this, Shu Qian and Doggo's eyes lit up with excitement, knowing that without this new skill, Doggo's soul energy wouldn't have lasted. Ice breath wasn't effective against these thick-furred pigs either, so it was the best skill they had ever received. If Doggo could take the initiative to activate that unknown skill with the speed absorb before the training, Doggo might even rank up to a normal 3-star. With this realization, Zhu Qian instructed Doggo to stick with Tear Claw. And Doggo did just that, dogging on these pigs left and right like they were nothing. He even choked one of them. Talk about disrespect. And you could tell that Doggo was really feeling himself right now. Even the employee was speechless, as the dog he initially assumed was weak had just done the impossible, as it killed more than half of the monsters already. But thinking about it thoroughly, he realized that this was indeed an impossible feat. Although the time intervals between attacks were getting longer, and the snow dire wolf's speed was slowing down, the wolf should have depleted its soul energy by now. It was a miracle to see it could still use the Tear Claw skill. And this loud thinking struck an idea in Yunyao, prompting her to speculate that Doggo might have gained an awakened companion skill after leveling up that allows it to recover soul energy. The employee initially doubted it, as he had never seen a spirit beast rank up from 1 to 2 stars and awaken a companion beast skill. But this changed when Yunyao revealed that Doggo had perfect quality. Now he realized that this snow dire wolf was truly magnificent. But deep inside, he remained skeptical, as it was still a snow dire wolf after all. Back to the fight. Doggo continued his rampage, chomping on these pigs like they were bite-sized. Doggo even had the audacity to give that bombastic side-eye, which effectively taunted them. With this, it was easier for Doggo to deal with them. They were like moths attracted to light, rushing towards him just to get killed. He showed no signs of stopping soon. He really wanted to get that bag, even deciding to camp at one point to make things faster and mock them with random emotes while he was at it. A true menace to society. But with that, they had finally decreased the number of monsters to 0. You could see they were proud of what they had done. Even the employee's opinion about snow dire wolves changed entirely, and he was now thinking of going to the wild to make a contract with a snow dire wolf. Even Yunyao couldn't help but join in feeling proud of his homie. But their attention was soon diverted to the rankings, as they changed to accommodate Shu Qian's score. This wasn't a small thing since everyone in the facility could see the rankings shift in real time. They were in awe at how Shu Qian had easily overtaken Zhu Weixue, who had taken nearly a week to achieve first place. Not only that, Zhu Qian's clearance speed was almost an hour faster, leading everyone to wonder when their Linjiang city had a genius of this caliber, and what spirit beast he had contracted with. Meanwhile, Shu Qian was ecstatic about their success. He asked the employee how long it took them to clear it, and the employee answered that they had made an amazing record of 2 hours and 53 minutes. This delighted them, and Shu Qian wondered aloud what reward he might receive. It would be good if he could get some money, though Yun Yao was enraged by how brain-dead he was to even wish for that, as there were tons of things she could think of more valuable than any money could buy. The employee backed this up, assuring Shu Qian that the things they would give him definitely weren't common. This immediately excited him, leading him to ask what they were. The employee admitted he didn't know as it depended on the curator, but of course, he wouldn't be disappointed, because last time, the curator gave Zuowei a precious fire crystal stone, a material for evolution that can't be bought with money alone. But since he wasn't the curator, Shu Qian and Yun Yao left without notice, heading to the lobby, eager to find the curator themselves to collect their reward. But the employee couldn't have that. He still needed to recommend them to the curator to be credited with finding such talents, so he chased after them. But to his dismay, someone more powerful had already reached Shu Qian, as he had accomplished an amazing feat with a rather weak pet. After all, and the bloodline awakening is not something that could be easily ignored. This old G had high expectations for these two. They could even surpass Zhu Weixue in the future. With this in mind, the old G asked Shu Qian what he wanted for his reward. Just like before, this cunning Shu Qian tried to hustle his way through, questioning the man's authority, if he even had the power to ask such questions. This made the employee face-palm at how disrespectful he was for not knowing who he was talking to. But luckily for him, the old G respected the hustle, assuring him that he would give him what he desired, as he casually revealed to them that he was the owner of the Tamer Hall. This immediately shocked both Shu Qian and Yun Yao. The old man then asked again about the reward. Shu Qian was about to ask for money, but luckily Yun Yao was there to stop him. This made the old G realize that this youngling was too stupid to know what he truly wanted. So he decided to offer something special tailored for them. Other than the normal rewards, for his contracted Snowdire wolf, he would give them all the materials required for its first evolution. This was more than they could expect based on their reaction. This was indeed more valuable than money, which made Shu Qian happy. These items would be a great help to him, as the competition was coming soon. With this, he could definitely show off by representing Linjiang City. But this favoritism had really garnered the unwanted attention of the salty and envious mofos present in the training hall. They couldn't comprehend someone being better than Zhu Weixue, especially if that someone had a Snowdire wolf as his companion, and they even felt it was such a waste to give him that much. Talk about the jealousy in their veins. Nevertheless, Shu Qian didn't care about what others thought and just expressed his gratitude, and was about to leave when the old man stopped him, as he had another proposition in mind. He asked Shu Qian if he wanted to try a harder and more challenging trial than the normal one. But Shu Qian outright refused because he didn't think he could challenge the normal difficulty yet. The old G turned away with a chuckle and reassured Shu Qian that he was too humble, while adding that there was no need to worry about offending him since he was only joking. And with that settled, old G mentioned he had other matters to attend to, but promised to come and watch Shu Qian's trial when he had free time. Shu Qian simply agreed as he was feeling embarrassed. Unbeknownst to others, Shu Qian had another reason for not accepting the challenge, and that he was still uncertain about Erha's situation, and thought it best to stay low-key. But it seems like his attempt was a little too late. As he glanced around, he noticed the attention he was already attracting based on the looks from others. With this he realized that it might be best to leave immediately. But before they could depart, old G reminded Shu Qian to make an appointment in advance for the normal difficulty trial, as he can't let such an opportunity to see a wolf with a bloodline awakened slip by. The next day, inside the training palace, the room buzzed with a palpable tension. People clustered in small groups, gathered in front of the screen and looking at it intently. Their expressions were anything but friendly as they discussed about Shu Qian, the kid who had astonishingly secured first place. They struggled to comprehend how this boy, with his seemingly weak Snowdire wolf, could have achieved such a feat, so they were easily convinced he must have cheated, which made them determined to expose him no matter what. But their skepticism stemmed from a deeper insecurity. If Shu Qian truly was talented enough to win with a weak pet, it meant they were inferior despite having stronger companions. Meanwhile, Shu Qian focused on his training inside the room, alongside his loyal Snowdire wolf. They systematically defeated the 2-star pigs in one swing. This fighting flow continued for a few consecutive days. By the third day, the atmosphere among the spectators began to shift. The initial hostility had waned as they observed Zukian and his Snowdire Wolf working tirelessly. Their relentless dedication to training over the past 3 days began to earn them a grudging respect. Some spectators, once vehemently against him, now viewed his efforts with neutrality, acknowledging the hard work and perseverance that drove his success. Meanwhile, Zukian remained focused, seeing clear progress with his Snowdire Wolf, even without using the Awaken skill. Their clear time improved, and this was all thanks to Doggo's eating habit skill, which made it easier to kill the enemies without worrying about their energy reserves. And they continued this enthusiasm without stopping. And by the 4th day, the opinions of those watching began to change. They now admitted that Zukian and his pet were quite capable. Even the guy who had been insisting he could do what Zukian did conceded that he couldn't. Surprisingly, the girl who had been equally angry before had done a complete 180, as she was now admiring Zukian for his handsomeness and how cool his wolf was. This left the 2 guys she was with stunned in disbelief. Back in the training room, Zukian continued to focus. He sat looking intently at his phone, noting that with the help of the Speed Absorb skill, his Snowdire Wolf could probably reach 3 stars soon, and he was confident with it, as he could see how his wolf enthusiastically defeated the pigs like they are its plaything. By the 5th day, everyone in the training palace had completely changed their perspective on Zukian. Now they were excited to see him train, feeling their days wouldn't be complete without watching Zukian and his Snowdire Wolf in action. Many even considered making a contract with a Snowdire Wolf, impressed by the abilities of Zukian's companion, and the enthusiasm in the hall was palpable, but none matched the girl's devotion. As she arrived at the training palace fully attired from head to toe, showing her support for Zukian and his wolf, which surprised the 2, but decided to join her as they felt the same, uniting to cheer on him from the outside. The once skeptical crowd had now become his biggest supporters, eagerly anticipating each new achievement from Zukian and his impressive Snowdire Wolf. Meanwhile, inside the training room, Zukian had undergone a transformation. The once focused and intense Zukian from before is now chilling, wearing those shades and sipped a drinks like he owns the place, taking his sweet time to relax, and he felt carefree knowing that Yunyao had mentioned she had grinded for 2 months to reach 4 stars, while he was almost at 3 stars after only a week. His speed was impressive compared to hers, and with the strongest in his class at 5 stars, he was confident he would overtake them quickly, and Zukian's progress would just drastically get faster as they rank up. As the Tamer Hall trial's difficulty was divided into 3 tiers, 1 to 3 stars being easy, 4 to 6 stars being normal, and 7 to 9 stars being hard. With his Snowdire Wolf approaching 3 stars, they could soon attempt the normal difficulty trials and increase their rate of progress. But the current trials had become increasingly easy as they had memorized the hologram's patterns. He considered exploring the snowfields or dungeons to further his wolf's growth. Although dungeons were more dangerous compared to the trials, they also offered greater benefits. And it was just right that the upcoming military training presented an opportunity to explore these dungeons, which he plans to seize it when the time came. But as he glanced at his Snowdire Wolf, he was shocked to see it was still tormenting the virtual pigs, chasing them around without actually finishing them off. And this immediately irritated him. So he reminded Doggo that they were here to rank up and not to play pretend like a shepherd dog. Meanwhile, inside the Luliang's manor, Luliang was having a human experience right now. He was enthralled by the sight he was seeing on the screen, as he was also part of a cultured society who enjoys dating Sims. But just like any kid, his experience was cut short by his secretary, who just burst through the door without knocking. And it didn't help that he sprinted towards him to report something, leading him to panically cover the screen to hide the crime scene. But there was no hiding now, so he accepted his fate and just told his subordinates to remember to knock next time around, even if the news is urgent. And now that was dealt with, he looks at what is so important this guy was talking about, and much to his surprise, this was indeed such an unexpected thing, as the tamer who had broken a 10-year-old record was the same guy no one wanted to team up with. This intriguing revelation completely changed his mind about going to the military training solo. Now, he was determined to team up with this mysterious tamer to see just how strong he really was. A few days later, the gathering day of the military training arrived, and everyone was in high spirits, as this was their chance to experience what it was like to be a tamer while also growing stronger in the process. But no one was more excited than Shuqian. As he had been training so much, his doggo was about to reach 3-star status, so he believed that with a little extra effort during this training, they could hit 3-star quickly, which would allow them to try the normal difficulty challenge in the hall when they returned. But as they were about to board the bus, their advisor stopped them and demanded to know why they didn't form a 3-man team like he suggested. Was it because they are too confident? And looking at his angry face made it clear he was not pleased. and so Shu Qian and his teammate tried to clarify that it wasn't by choice. But before they could respond, the advisor turned his attention to Lu Liang, who didn't listen as he was planning to go solo. But to everyone's surprise, Lu Liang had changed his mind, explaining to his teacher that they had simply forgotten to hand in the new group list. And this confused the other students until Lu Liang approached Shu Qian, while extending his arm with a smirk, and then asked to join Zuqian's team. But Shu Qian stared him dead in the eyes, trying to figure him out. And Lu Liang felt a bit taken aback, as this was the first time someone hadn't instantly accepted his offer. So to convince Shu Qian further, he decided to reveal his contract beast. With a swift motion, a 5-star snow elf emerged from his pocket. Shu Qian's reaction was one of surprise, and so Lu Liang thought he had this in the bag and looked forward to seeing the strength of the top lister of the training palace. He was eager to find out if Shu Qian was stronger than him, and he saw this as the perfect opportunity to gauge his own strength as well, as he have been training at home without the chance to challenge the training palace himself. So if this Zuqian doesn't meet expectations, he might have the chance to break the record in the training palace as well. But little did he know, this display only made him seem arrogant in Shu Qian's eyes, and so he was about to decline Lu Liang's offer. But before Shu Qian could say anything, one of Lu Liang's admirers angrily interrupted, demanding to know why he was teaming up with a low-level team like theirs. And this made Shu Qian glare at her with malicious intent. But she didn't seem to care, as she was more concerned about not being in Lu Liang's team, especially after he had told her he couldn't team up because he stated that he had already formed a group. And this is a troublesome fate for a popular kid like him. Still, Lu Liang tries to de-escalate the situation, politely explained what had happened and expressed his desire to temporarily team up with Shu Qian. But the girl wasn't having it, so she attempted to convince him not to join Shu Qian's group, citing that he had only contracted with a 1-star Snowdire wolf, and Shu Qian is not about to let be hit by stray insults without clapping back. So he was tempted to slap her audacity out of that rotten head of hers. And Lu Liang noticed his irritated expressions as well, so he tries his best to calm her down, while explaining that he didn't mind the team composition, and that Shu Qian's team was the only one left with an open spot. But them girls are persistent. Without hesitation, they offered to trade one of their members, just to have Lu Liang join them, even though their teammate was clearly unwilling. And this blatant shallowness didn't sit well with Shu Qian, fueling his own pettiness. And he knew the best way to hurt this girl was to claim Lu Liang for himself. And so Shu Qian mocked her stupidity, and turned to Yun Yao to share his plan, which she was on board immediately. He then turned back to the girl and clarified that they were officially a team since they had already handed the list to the advisor. Lu Liang was already their team member, leaving her with no chance. And this enraged the girl. She couldn't believe her chance to team up with Lu Liang was thwarted by a low-level tamer. Meanwhile, the girl who was being traded stood there smiling, relieved to be out of the drama. And with no other choice, the persistent girls retreated, pretending nothing had happened. And with that out of the way, Lu Liang apologized for what had happened, but Shu Qian and Yun Yao assured him it wasn't his fault. In fact, they had to thank him. Otherwise, the advisor would have deducted points for their incomplete group. Now that everything was settled, the advisor instructed them to board the bus. As the bus rolled through the streets, the anticipation of the upcoming military training grew. But some eyes couldn't help but glance intently at Shu Qian's group. Among them was the bully who had previously mocked Shu Qian, though his focus was more on Lu Liang, as he was puzzled as to why someone like Lu Liang would team up with low-level tamers. Was it because Lu Liang had a savior complex, trying to paint himself as a good student willing to go above and beyond to help weaker tamers? But the bully brushed this idea, as he found it hard to believe anyone could carry that much weight, no matter how strong they were. So maybe this was Lu Liang's way of showing off his own strength by contrasting it with his teammates' weaknesses. But maybe that wasn't entirely true either, as the girl with them did have a fairly rare pet with her. So could it be because her pet is very strong? But he quickly dismissed that idea as well, knowing it had only recently leveled up its star rating, so that was likely out of the question. And this led him to think that maybe Shu Qian was the strong one. The name did sound familiar, as it was similar to the one who had recently broken the record in the training palace. But the thought of it just made him laugh, as a 2-star Snowdire wolf breaking records, let alone clear trials inside the training palace, is totally impossible. And so he figured that it must just be a coincidence, and Shu Qian probably had the same name as someone impressive. Meanwhile, the trio continued their casual conversation, where Lu Liang seized the opportunity to ask Shu Qian if he and his pet were the ones who had made changes inside the training palace. And this question caught Shu Qian by surprise, prompting him to ask how Lu Liang knew about that, to which he explained that Shu Qian had caused such a big ruckus, so how could he possibly not know? But what he did was near impossible that most of their classmates probably hadn't realized Shu Qian was the one who had broken the record set by Zuo, which is a shame to say the least. And he may not know this, but the Yongling Pavilion in Linjiang City keeps and maintains all records of Zuo, from novice spirit tamer to apprentice tamer, and then professional tamer as a monument. Her 10-year record is one of them, and Shuqian was the first to break one of Zuo Weishui's records, even if it was only at the easiest difficulty for beginners. This was a significant milestone, and this amount of glazing is a first for Zuqian, and so he really didn't know how to reciprocate, and just smiled and attribute his accomplishment to luck. But Lu Liang had a different perspective. He believed that luck favors the prepared, and his abilities were just sufficient to grasp that fortune. And where they were heading presented a great opportunity for tamers like them. Though might be dangerous, the monsters there could potentially enhance the strength of their contracted beasts. With this in mind, he suggested that if Zuqian were up for the challenge like how he thought he would be, they should delve deep and explore these treacherous areas. And his sly smile revealed his true intentions. But this realization only fueled his excitement. So Zuqian agreed to Lu Liang's suggestion, seeing it as a dual opportunity. And that is to grow stronger, while also possibly uncovering clues about his fragmented memories. But just as he was getting lost in his thoughts, Yunyao's abrupt interjection snapped Zuqian back to reality. She was clearly annoyed, feeling sidelined as they planned their adventure without even asking her. And this tension prompted Zuqian to quickly ask if she wanted to join them, in an attempt to smooth things over, but Yunyao firmly declined. She insisted they go ahead without her, but reminded them that they couldn't disregard her opinions and make decisions unilaterally, since they were a team. And the boys quickly apologized and agreed. But with that issue settled, Zuqian then turned to Yunyao to address something that had been bothering him for quite some time. He asked her why they hadn't seen other people's contracted beasts with them, which Yunyao explained that after making a contract, tamers kept their beasts inside the spirit control domain, only summoning them when it was time to fight. And seeing the confusion on Zuqian's face, she knew he had no idea what a spirit control domain was, and so she elaborated further, explaining that it was a type of soul contract that allowed contracted beasts to rest and recover in a portable space. As long as one was a spirit controller, the field could be activated. To demonstrate, she flicked her finger, and suddenly, her snow fox transformed into a more spirit-like state, and was transferred directly into Yunyao, specifically her soul. This was the spirit domain she had been talking about, and Zuqian found himself fantasizing about what it looked like inside, imagining it as a claustrophobic space due to his lack of imagination. But he quickly brushed this aside, realizing it wasn't relevant since he wouldn't be the one trapped in that place. Instead, he went ahead to ask Yunyao how to open a spirit domain, which she gladly explained that it was as simple as putting her beast inside. As long as the tamer guided the perception of soul power and a soul contract existed between the spirit beast, the soul bond within their body could open up the spiritual domain of control. And this was such a helpful thing to discover, leaving him to wonder why he hadn't known about it sooner. But Lu Liang didn't see much need for it in his case, as his spirit beast was very small and didn't take up any space at all. But Zuqian, on the other hand, had a large and rather noisy companion, and so he quickly asked Doggo if it could feel the soul bond yet. Though Doggo was clueless about what his partner was trying to achieve, it was clear that Zuqian was looking for a way to get some quiet time by temporarily getting rid of his beast, which made Yunyao smirk, but also clarified that activating the soul bond wasn't an easy process as he think it would be. Especially for a novice spirit, it typically takes more than a week or even longer. Only time would tell if they could manage it. But her eyes widened in disbelief as the impossible happened right before her eyes, as Zuqian and his beast formed the bond instantly after learning about the spirit domain. Even Lu Liang was speechless, recognizing that these two were indeed something special. And then Doggo transformed into a more spirit-like state and immediately entered Zuqian's spirit domain. This was an entirely new sensation for Zuqian, one he couldn't easily put into words. But once the process was complete, he looked at his team as if this accomplishment was a normal feat. And Yunyao congratulated him, of course, though deep inside, her pride took a hit, as it had taken her 3 days to activate her spirit domain. Even Lu Liang felt the same, recalling the 2 days he had spent opening his spirit domain. Yet Zuqian had managed it in under 2 minutes. But instead of feeling down, this put a smile on his face, as it reassured that his decision to form a team with Zuqian was indeed the right choice. And after that, their journey to the camp was uneventful, and so some time passed. They arrived at the camp, which, true to its name, it is a military installation complete with watchtowers and military vehicles scattered around. Furthermore, the weather here was extreme, a stark contrast to the city's mild climate. And everyone here is completely busy with their own work at hand, one of which was a truck transporting several monster carcasses they had just killed ready to be examined. And inside the vehicle, the soldiers noticed the bus carrying students from Icefield Academy, a school smart enough to seize the opportunity to join the military training coinciding with the opening of the foreign land. but the other soldier felt salty about the students' presence. Thinking they were just privileged kids, he grumbled that they had already worked hard to kill the beasts, so having the students at the camp was useless, as they wouldn't experience the real thing in here, and more likely to be akin to a camp outside the city. But his buddy quickly told him to drop that attitude, reminding him that the students he was dissing now might be his comrades in the future. Besides, they were killing monsters to ensure these students' futures, so he should be proud that they were safe visiting the camp. And with his reasonings, the salty soldier easily conceded. But he won't lie though. The carcass in their truck was a massive one, likely beyond the ordinary level. It appeared to be an elite female worm. Despite its formidable nature, they were the ones who had killed it. But his buddy reminded him to not get carried away, as getting complacent could dull their senses, which the soldier understood and acknowledged this advice. Meanwhile, the students disembarked from the bus and immediately felt the drastic temperature change. However, what truly caught their attention was the enormous centipede atop a truck. Seeing that it appeared to be dead, they quickly approached it to get a closer look. Meanwhile, Sukian was absorbed in his own activities, taking Doggo out from his spirit domain and marveling at the amusing process. Back to where the students approached the monster, they noticed something unsettling. It seemed to be subtly flinching, and they aren't stupid to take a chance, so they wisely stopped short of getting too close and observed it from a safe distance instead. And as the other students were engrossed with the monster, Sukian was discovering the wonders of the spirit domain. He found that he could easily communicate with Doggo through his consciousness. The only problem was that the current domain was rather small. Fortunately, Doggo seemed to enjoy the spirit domain, so it wasn't much of a problem for now. A few moments later, the soldiers were preparing to hand over the centipede's corpse for examination, but as they began processing it, the monster suddenly started twitching. To their horror, cracks began forming in its shell. From these cracks, green liquid burst out, splattering everywhere. What happened next was even more shocking, as newborn centipedes began crawling out en masse, creating a chaotic scene. Immediately, the students were in panic. Most of them dip out as fast as they could, while some had the survival instinct of a rock, standing there all frozen in fear. To their surprise, the newborn centipedes seemed to sense their fear and began chasing the students rather than the soldiers, which the soldiers easily caught on, and so they quickly moved to intercept the monsters, prioritizing the safety of the students above all else. And this chaotic scene was unprecedented at the camp, as it was the first time they had witnessed how centipedes truly gave birth, with living larvae emerging from the corpses. But based on known information they have, even the weakest centipede larvae possessed ordinary 7-star power. So if these creatures managed to break through the crowd, it would undoubtedly result in a one-sided massacre, and the captain was determined to prevent such a catastrophe. So he sprang into action to face the monsters head-on. But despite their best efforts, the soldiers were outnumbered. While some managed to block the centipedes, others continued to prey on the students. Among the terrified students was one who could only scream, frozen in place, and was just awaiting for the impending doom. But just as the monster was inches away from making her a grim memory, Best Boy came in, knocking these bitches out with a full-body slam right into the centipede's gut. Immediately, Prince Charming over here aided the girl and check up on her, while Sukian and Yunyao faced the beast head-on, which Luliang couldn't believe himself, noting that the centipedes appeared to be at least normal grade 6 stars or even higher. But this Zukian guy is just smiling like he wanted this fade from the start. And so Luliang couldn't decide whether to call him brave or foolish. But one thing was certain, and that there was no trace of fear in Zukian, and his beast mirrored his fearless resolve. And Yunyao was no different either, as she didn't hesitate to attack the centipedes with bursts of ice, aiming directly at their eyes to support Doggo from afar. Even though she knew all too well that her snowfox was small and couldn't withstand even a single blow from such powerful centipedes, and Sukian was aware of this as well. So he seized the opportunity Yunyao created, as efficient as he possibly could, launching their most devastating skills right from the start. They even managed to knock the centipede back a few meters just by raw strength alone. But as the smoke cleared, he didn't like what he saw. It became evident that their attack had only scratched its hard shell. With this, they realized the seriousness of the battle and the strength of their enemies. But even with these odds, they knew they couldn't afford to let even one of these monsters get through, as it would result in a bloodbath, and their conscience wouldn't allow them to live with such a failure. So they stood their ground. And now that Luliang escorted the girl to safety, he quickly returned to face the monsters, and summoned his snow fairy and activated its snow song skill, which had an encouraging and soothing effect that temporarily enhanced the combat effectiveness of his team, which he then explained to others that his beast was primarily for support, meaning its attacks weren't strong enough for offense, leaving that task to Yunyao and Sukian. And so they did just that, attacking these monsters while the snow fairy gave support. Meanwhile, Amidst the crowd of panicking students, their advisor took charge. He guided the students while acting as a vanguard against the monsters, summoning his own pet beast, the snow eagle, to protect them at all costs. Back where Zukin was, the centipede quickly rushed in for the kill, but Luliang was just in time to activate his companion's skill, the snowstorm. Suddenly, a powerful force pulled everything upwards, surprising even Zukian, and the next thing he knew, a large pile of snow engulfed him, while the centipede was tossed aside like it was nothing. And Zukian was stunned by this, as he hadn't expected such a strong offensive move from a beast Luliang had claimed was weak in that area. Still, he wouldn't let this opportunity slip by, and so Doggo zoomed in and attacked the centipede again, targeting the same spot. And the result was favorable. The once seemingly invincible monster was now bleeding. And this just sealed it. With Doggo's awakening and Luliang's buff, they could actually hurt the beast. But just to make sure, Sukin whipped out his phone to check the beast's stats, and as expected, it had taken significant damage. But what surprised him even more was that the monster didn't have any long-distance skills. This meant that as long as they kept their distance, it couldn't hurt them, and so they are free to beat it from the distance. And this is such an amazing discovery, boosting their fighting spirit. But as this happened, the bully from before watched from the sidelines, clenching his fists in frustration, as he couldn't understand why these three could face such a monster without fear, while he who often boasted about his power couldn't even move his feet to join the fight, and his first reaction had been to run away with everyone else, and now his body was shaking with fear, while they showed none. And they continued their barrage of attacks from the distance, which also blocked the centipede's vision, making it easier for Doggo to land its attacks. And they maintained this strategy for a while. But as they did, Luliang began to wonder about the Snow Dire Wolf's skill, and how was it so strong that it could damage a beast far stronger than itself? The only possible explanation he could come up with is that it may have a unique skill that is undocumented in the Spirit Beast database. But no matter the reason was, this just explained why Doggo had achieved top rank at the training palace. But as the monster took more damage, it grew more desperate and prepared to retaliate with everything it had, which Zukian took notice of, prompting him to order Doggo to step back as its fangs is now excreting poison. Thankfully, Doggo was fast enough to do just that. And as this unfolded, their advisor couldn't believe his eyes. These freshmen had tricks up their sleeves, managing to damage the monster in ways even he couldn't. With things relatively clear on his side, he unsummoned his beast to let it recover from its injuries, but his complexion remained worried. He knew that if this fight dragged on, the monsters would become riled up and go berserk, endangering the three students. And so he planned to use his beast to sweep them out of danger if things took a turn for the worse, which he hopes doesn't come to that, as doing so would weaken their defenses and may endanger the other students. Meanwhile, inside the bus where the students were hiding, one of the girls noticed Luliang on the front line, and the bitch from before reacted all worried thinking he haven't successfully evacuated. But to her surprise, he is actually fighting the monster head-on, and not only that, they were actually damaging the beast, and their attacks came from all angles, making it hard for the monster to counter. But just as the teacher feared, the centipede entered a berserk state. Its speed doubled, and it wriggled frantically to confuse them, rushing towards their ranks. But their pets wouldn't allow such a thing, intercepting it as best as they could. But the centipede was relentless, and its eyes locked onto Yunyao, and the monster moved so fast that they couldn't react in time. Not even the teacher was fast enough to do as he planned, and so now Yunyao was at the mercy of the centipede, which was ready to bite her head off. Thankfully, Zukian had a few tricks left, throwing a snowball to divert its attention, then activated Doggo's deterrence skill, which instantly disoriented the centipede, and with Doggo's presence it managed to loosen the centipede's grip on Yunyao, allowing her to escape. And the advisor was just dumbfounded, as the deterrence skill not only interrupted the monster's berserk state, but also cancelled it out. But what puzzled him even more was how a common-level Snow Dire Wolf could possess such a powerful skill. Meanwhile, the centipede tried to shake off the effects of the deterrence skill, but as soon as it did, Doggo was already in front of it, delivering that one piece it had ordered, completely knocking it to the ground with such force. And now that Fluffy saw that her partner was okay, she went ahead and to do her thing, creating ice spikes to penetrate the centipede, but it wasn't strong enough to get through, and so Doggo made it possible, by beating this bitch down as hard as he could towards the spikes. And if that ain't enough, they doubled down with a barrage of skills. From deterrence to directly throwing hands, they ensured the monster had no chance to counterattack. As the centipede lay on the ground, Luliang joined in, hitting it with his Ice Edge ability, attacking from all directions and chipping away at its health. And despite its hard shell, the internal bleeding they caused was significant. And they saw a glimmer of hope when the centipede's abdomen revealed a weak spot. And so they focused their attacks on this vulnerable area, determined to finish the beast once and for all. and their relentless assault continued without pause. Even as the centipede remained on the ground bloodied and battered, they didn't stop, and just by the looks of it, this battle would come to an end. And so the centipede lay there all bloodied and broken. But unfortunately for it, this ain't enough for Fluffy and Doggo, and so they continued jumping on this fool, beating it up senseless for the second round. And the only thing it could do is flail around in agony, and they only stopped when they were sure there was no more blood left in its body. Even then, Yunyao couldn't resist stomping on it, furious that it had dared to attack her. The only way to stop her was for Luliang to tell them that his pet sensed no more vitality in the monster, which brought relief to the group. Meanwhile, back on the bus, the students were in shock, but no one was more affected than the bully. He couldn't understand why these guys did such a thing, and how they weren't afraid to die. But what he didn't realize was that they were afraid. They just chose to protect rather than cower like him. At the same time, Luliang's admirers were both relieved and proud, emphasizing that it was because of him they were safe. And just as things seemed to settle, the soldiers, having dealt with the other centipedes, came running to check on the students. They were surprised to see that the students had actually managed to kill one of the centipedes, and they are even gleefully explaining that they were all right, and that only their pets were tired and needed recovery. But looking at the dog, it didn't seem tired at all, which only confused the soldier. While on the side, the teacher is doing some internal monologuing again, proud to see his students working so well together to defeat the beast. But he won't lie. It was because of the snow wolf that had truly changed the outcome. Zuxian then cuddled Doggo to express of how proud he was of him for a job well done. To his surprise, a system window suddenly popped up, rewarding him for the battle. It informed him that his Snow Dire Wolf had broken through to a 3-star ordinary rank, and additionally, the Splitting Claw skill had evolved to Ice Shattering Claw, which added a freezing effect to the attack. This made him excited and proud of his dog even more. But his train of thought was interrupted as the captain approached to apologize for the oversight on their part, not knowing there were still larvae inside the corpse. But thanks to their bravery, a large number of casualty was avoided, and this was such a commendable feat, which he can be sure that this would be relayed to the university. But he was then interrupted by the teacher, stating that there was no need to do that, as he had witnessed everything and would inform the university himself as soon as they returned. And the commander thanked him, but noted that reporting it twice wouldn't hurt, as the Snowfield Army wasn't stingy about giving credit where credit is due. And with that cleared up, the commander assured the advisor that another part of the Snowfield Army would be dispatched to ensure that a similar situation wouldn't happen again, which relieved the teacher, as it seemed they could continue their training. And with that, the soldiers began removing the bodies of the dead centipedes. While they are at it, the advisor told the students that it was safe to come out of hiding now, as the monsters had been cleared, which was a relief to the students. Hey! All jokes aside, if you like this commentary, like and subscribe for more. Peace.